I had originally said that this project 4, this is your first personal project, was to be due on November 11th. But I think that you could all pull this off and do it for next week. That gives you an extra week for your final. And at that point, I think the epiphany was that the idea of working with a static camera, Christo, and not letting yourself be varied too much. I mean, I previewed a couple of you where your camera was moving around, or I think in Jesse's story, the camera rotates, it goes 180, which is fine, that's good. I kind of looked at it, and I'll let you present it. But I think that you're in a good place right there, and you're thinking, oh my God, I've got to do 20 seconds. And in the other stories, you might have thought to yourself, Brooke, I have a shot. I should do a picture of that shot. And you don't know how long it is. And then all of a sudden, if you're doing a one shot and you've got all this action happening left and right and up and down, back and forth, X, Y, Z axis, and you're thinking, oh my God, if it's 30 seconds, I've got to draw more than just 1 or 2 story panels. You are going to need 26, 36 story panels. And I think it's perfect in this semester where it's just long enough that you can get your hands on it for 2 weeks and you can finish it and you can feel what it's like to have a shot that has 24 panels in it. There's no sequence, there's no scene, it's just shot 1. You don't even put shot 2 in there, unless you're Christo, because he did his wrong. Christo, are you going to present, or do you want me to present yours?
I'd rather you do it.
That's fine. We can do that. And I'm not gonna make it be didactic or anything. I'm just gonna say, because I already previewed his. It's a good story, but I only wanted 1 shot, because then you start thinking differently. All right. And having said that, I want to do something that I haven't done yet for you in this class, and I alluded to it a little bit, and that was just talking about the hero's journey. And so I wanted to just spend a few moments. I didn't want to torture you. I didn't want to like drive the point home. And one of those reasons is because you are not writing for features. You cannot do the hero's journey in a 3-minute film. It's just absolutely impossible. If you were doing a final for this class, a 3-minute film is very doable. If you have got 36 panels per minute, then that is 100 panels for a 3-minute film. So just make a mental note to yourself, Christo, your final should have about 100 panels in it, plus or minus. It depends on your story. And you cannot have the hero's journey. But what I thought I would do is just put it in there, talk about it right now. I think it would be dangerous. In my experience, I think it is dangerous to do the whole monomyth, to talk about Campbellian mythology and characterization and the ordinary world and the fantastical world on the very first day of class, because then you're like, oh, Billy wants us to write feature films. And in the past, I've had to like put the brakes on and screech people to a halt, because I have had students in the past sit down at a typewriter and type out a 50-page script. And I'm like, oh my God, what did you do? This is something that I did not want you to do. All right, so having said that, the first thing that I would like to do, and then after that, I want either you presenting your one shot, or you can pick me to just play it off of Canvas, which is fine. And I can't read my writing. What did I write here? Oh, okay. 2 other announcements. So the first announcement is that I have word out to students of mine who graduated 15 years ago, and they're both working professionals as storyboard people. So we talked to Achu, right? And he was great. He's like, whoa, he's like, he's as good as it's gonna get. He will never be hungry. People will always be, Achu, what are you doing? He's always gonna get phone calls asking for work. But these students applied themselves and they did good work, and they got a job at a game company and then moved to another game company. And I'm not exactly sure where they are now, but they are doing boards. And there's 2 of them, so they should be joining us next week. And I would be asking them to just maybe look at your boards, which is perfect because they could look at all 20 students and make comments, talk about themselves, and not have to be wrapped up for more than an hour. And I'm not going to tell you who they are, because then you could go do research and then email them and go behind my back, Hannah Joy. So, and the other thing is that I am waiting for confirmation on that. I just emailed them this afternoon, and I don't see confirmation coming in yet. They are working from home. We will know. I will know, and I'll surprise you next week. All right. So just a couple of things that I wanted to mention was that I looked at my calendar, which I always think is a very strange word because everyone says calendar. How do you say it? Jesse, how do you say calendar?
Yes.
Calendar. Andrew?
Calendar.
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 But it's spelled calendar. It's one of those things where you're like, now I can't get it out of my head. It's like a bad song.
Calendar.
It sounds better.
Like February.
It sounds better if you do it as a Gregorian chant.
You're right, exactly. I just distracted myself. I looked at my calendar on Friday, and I was relieved because both of my academy classes both bailed on their Zoom. I opened up my Zoom at 2 o'clock, no one showed up. 3 o'clock, no one showed up. I'm like, okay, I'm going out drinking. Okay, maybe not. Maybe I'll clean the house. I was getting ready. My ex was moving out and I had to help her move her stuff. And so I just like, and so I was bebopping around the house doing a bunch of stuff and cleaning and trying not to be depressed. So I forced myself to be happy. It's like one of those things where comedians who are really funny tend to be really depressed people. Go look at the life of Benny Hill. Like he was the funniest British comedian like ever. And Jesse's about to say something.
No, I just don't want to look at the life of Benny Hill.
Because you know it? Do you already know it?
I think like you watch an episode and you kind of like, you can see there's some dark stuff going on there.
Well, he's a goofy guy and it was very vaudevillian. He was on TV in the UK for a long time and he was very funny. He was a great actor, but he didn't have that much of a charmed life. Anyway, so what I had done was reminded myself, what is today? Wednesday, the 28th. On Sunday, that Over the Moon had just come out. And it was on it was on HBO Plus. It was on HBO Max. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. And it was 140 minutes. I'm like, okay. And there's nobody in the house, so I turned the speakers up really loud. You know, my cat passed away a year and a half ago, so I don't have to worry about pissing her off anymore. And I just let it play. And I had no idea it was going to be a musical. Has anyone seen it yet? So I'm not going to give it away, but it is a musical. And there is the monomyth in there. There is the hero's journey. And there's growth in the characters, which is always great. We're not going to get into that argument like I had with all my students about Bug's life, about how Flick didn't grow during the film, and because he didn't. Everybody else grew in the film.
Was he not supposed to? Wasn't he just a man on a mission? That's it.
Everyone else in the film had a character arc. His was just convincing them to change their minds. And so I think you should watch it. I think it's Glenn Keane's second feature film. His first was Tangled. We talked about that already. I think it's really good. I think that Rotten Tomatoes was giving it a 77, so it's getting a C+. But the user rating was like 87. And there's a reason for that. What's the reason why the user rating? Well, the user rating is usually a bigger differential anyway. The critics tend to be really more stubborn about their numbers, and regular lay audience is like, oh, I loved it. And they have no idea why they love it, you know. But just, did anyone watch the trailers or anything? So what's your intuition? Why is the user rating at 87? Andrew, double check that for me, that on Rotten Tomatoes, the user rating, which it changes as more people put it in there. The user rating for Over the Moon was like 87. What? What? Brooke, what?
Is it because the people who are likely to like it are the people who are going to watch it to begin with?
And who are those people?
Well,
What is the movie about?
Children, families,
What's the movie about?
a little girl.
Yes, and where does she live?
And does she live in China?
Uh-huh, and what's the name of the hero? She's not really a villain. Who's the hero?
I don't know. I haven't
Her
seen it.
name is Changi. And if you look at the way Changi is spelled, it looks like change. But they just say Changi. And I, you know, that's me speaking Chinese because I'm so affluent in Chinese.
Wait, that's a real word. I lived in China for a year. I recognize that word.
So,
Chang'e.
Andrew, what is it? What's the user rating? Andrew, you're muted.
So there's a tomato score, or wait, what was it? A tomato
On
meter
Rotten-
and an
on Rotten
audience
Tomatoes,
score.
they
There's
usually give you
Audience
a
score.
rating and then a user score.
okay, so the audience score is 82%, and the tomato meter, whatever that is a 79%.
I say that, so they came together a little bit. The people in China are going to love this film. It is, if it's, from what I can tell, it's really, really rich with Chinese mythology. And there's a couple of like really hip hop dance numbers in there where I'm like rolling my eyes going, oh my God, this is so hokey. But they're going to love it.
Chang'e, I just looked it up, and Chang'e means to sing.
To sing. But there
I
you
knew
go.
I recognized that word.
There you go. I think it's going to do very well in China. And I have yet to hear back from my buddy who is like he has a master's in film, about whether or not the producers make a higher amount for the film the more people watch on Netflix. I think that's the way it works. It's just kind of like YouTube. But oh my God, if when it's on Netflix, sorry, HBO Max, and people all over China there's 5 billion people in China. And so it could just do, it could be a blockbuster without America. On the other hand, we hand out the Oscars and the whole world loves the Oscars. I don't know why. It's like this tainted, strange industry down there in Los Angeles. But I thought that, you know, get yourself either into a free 30-day trial of HBO Max and just watch it so that, no, why not? Why? There's no.
It's not on HBO Max. It's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix. It is?
So
No,
don't
it's
get a
not.
trial for HBO Max. You won't find it there.
I thought Over the Moon was on HBO Max.
It's a Netflix original.
It's a Netflix. Okay, here, slap
Yeah.
my hand. Thank you. So I think the note that I was making was for Wolfwalkers, which is going to be on Apple Plus. And that's not coming out until November something. And for that one, you want to get the 30-day. You should just have Netflix. Because Netflix, there's so much content on. Jasmine, stop disagreeing with me. You should have Netflix. It's the 21st century. Look at Andrew's agreeing with me.
Life hack. A lot of companies have started doing it where if you sign up for a free trial and then you cancel, then a year later they give you back another free trial. So like I get a month of Hulu every year.
There you go. Perfect. So I wanted to do this thing. Let me make sure I do this in the right order. Because on Netflix, if you have Netflix, you'll be able to watch American Utopia. Does anyone like music at all? What is American Utopia? Is anybody looking it up? Is the computer in front of you? You can just look it up.
It says that American Utopia is on HBO.
Uh-huh. And so what is American Utopia?
It's David Byrne's acclaimed theatrical concert.
Directed by
Spike Lee.
Likely.
Spike Lee.
I
So,
saw it in New York.
It's amazing. I can imagine how amazing it is. All the
It was
musicians,
fun.
all the musicians, the drummers, the guitarists, the singers are all radioed. You don't see the drums, you don't see the wires, they're dancers. It's brilliant. It's really wonderful. So then, make sure I'm doing this in the right order. So now for your pencils. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna share my screen with you. So the first thing that I wanted to do, like I had said, oh look, this is the stuff I've been working on for the last year and a half. All right, so I wanted to end with that. I wanted to end with that. No. Okay, yes, starting right here. So the hero's journey. How many of you have never heard of the hero's journey? And just talk because I can't
Me.
see the chat thing.
Never heard of it.
You've never heard of it. Anybody else? Everyone's heard of it before? No, Brooke, okay.
Oh no, I've heard of it. I've read the entire book.
Okay, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. All right, so there's a couple of things that I want you to be aware of. The first is that you go to a movie, and this is kind of why I prompted it with Over the Moon or The Wolfwalkers or even American Utopia as a narrative. And if you're listening to a story in film and you've got 100 minutes, it's probably taking you on a story arc. And we talked about story arcs before. And in talking about story arcs, you always have to talk about the hero's journey. Now, Joseph Campbell had written the hero's journey as part of A Hero with a Thousand Faces. And that's the book you read. Brooke? Is that the book?
There's another book.
There are a
That's the
couple of
book that he wrote.
He
But
wrote an
then he
actual
did
book
the
about
series.
his journey.
His book
He
was
did the
Hero-
series with Bill Moyer.
that
Power
was
of
a TV
Men.
series. And then there was an adjacent book to it called Christopher Vogler called The Writer's Journey. And I don't see that here. And that describes how you apply.
That actually might be the one that I read.
And Christopher Vogler writes it, and Vogler in German means bird. So Christopher Bird. He writes it in a very open form where it's like, okay, here's describing the hero, here's describing your villain, here's describing the antagonist and the protagonist, here's describing the whole arc, here's describing how the hero's journey works and why it works. And both of those books, the Hero with a Thousand Faces and The Writer's Journey by Christopher Vogler, I'm not picking it up. I'm not picking it up. For some reason, I'm not picking it up. Tell you, hey, this is a great way to analyze story. This is a great way to, oh, here's the book right here. This is a great way to get into the nitty gritty of the story and analyze why it was working and why it wasn't working. What is this character for? Is this a MacGuffin character? A MacGuffin character is a character that just kind of keeps the story rolling along because the author was lazy. So if you've ever heard of a MacGuffin character, it's kind of like, why did that just happen? You know, that was kind of weird. So let's just start there, because I think that what we can do is we can go backwards and forwards. Now, I've heard the MacGuffin character described a couple of different ways. So the MacGuffin character is a theatrical plot device in films or books that sets the characters into motion and drives the story along. The MacGuffin is an object, an idea or person or goal that the main characters are either in pursuit of or which serves as a motivation for their actions. Usually the MacGuffin is revealed in the end of the first act. So, and it's right there. You can just read it and you can do the Wikipedia thing. But here's what I'm going to tell you. If you study story, when you're studying story and you are analyzing a book, you're analyzing a short film or a long film, a feature film, and you recognize that something within the story is only there as a plot device, you are automatically kicking yourself out of your suspension of disbelief. You're like, wait, why did that happen? Wait, why did that? I don't understand why that just happened. And then it leads into another arc or something like that. And then you go backwards a little bit, oh, that was just too obvious. And so it says here, you know, blah, blah, blah. And if you read it and you really study it, the MacGuffin is not usually a positive thing. It's not usually a device within feature film or universal literature that is a good thing. Many authors tell you to avoid it altogether because there's a failure in their story. There's something that they're trying to take a short story and make it really long. Or they're trying to take a really, really, really long story, like 6 books for the Black Cauldron, and make it into one film. And you're trying to just direct the audience from one sequence to another sequence really fast. And you're using a MacGuffin to just change engines. So keep this in mind, that the MacGuffin is a theatrical device that moves the story along. It can be used brilliantly. The idea of a MacGuffin character, if it's used correctly, is that it's very subtle.
Question.
What's that?
Oh, I have a question. So
Sure.
like, because I want to understand, would like, you mentioned Bug's Life, would the Flick character be a MacGuffin in a
No,
way?
he's the lead character.
Oh, so he couldn't be because he's lead.
So let's pick one here. So Lucas, in contrast to Hitchcock's view of MacGuffin, so I don't think I've seen this movie, 39 Steps. And I think this is just Lucas talking about Raiders of the Lost Ark was an excellent example as opposed to most obscure examples. So I'm not sure where the MacGuffin character was in Raiders of the Lost Ark. I think this is just an overview of the MacGuffin. And
It would be the arc.
Well, right, but the MacGuffin is usually a character.
No, I don't think so, but
It's a plot device or something.
I hear what you're saying.
It starts out being insignificant, unimportant, or irrelevant, and sometimes it's just used too much and it's a little obvious. When you are watching Over the Moon, there's a MacGuffin. There's a presence of a MacGuffin at least 3 times in the film. And for me, it's completely obvious. And it's like, oh, yeah, okay, I get it. And so when you go, you're going to watch Over the Moon. So just make a note. Billy said there's a MacGuffin, there's an act of a MacGuffin at least 3 times in the film. All right, so, and remember, this is...
Oh, sorry, one more time. Would it be like the White Rabbit in Alice in Wonderland?
Almost, except that the White Rabbit reoccurs, yes. So yes, that's a good example. But because it reoccurs, and because he is more of a significant character, it's not so trivial. He becomes more of a lead in the story arc. But yes, you could consider the White Rabbit a MacGuffin. Some MacGuffins are just like, oh my God, why did that happen? That was really stupid. But Lewis Carroll's stories are so phantasmagorical that the MacGuffin is folded into the story better. Right. So this is Christopher Vogler, and remember, when you see this book, it's a great book, $20, both at the end of this book and at the end of Hero with a Thousand Faces, it tells you don't use this template. Because if you use this template, your audience is going to know the ending of the film the instant your character leaves the ordinary world. And that's a very, very, very important point. Both of them tell you not to use this template. So let me explain the template. I'm going to put this tab away. Often the hero's journey is also called a monomyth. Joseph Campbell is also known as the father of American mythology. All right, you ready? So I think I put it away just a little too fast. So I'm going to go back here, and I'm just going to bring up this image. This is a good one. So it's 12 steps, but in the monomyth, there's 17. In the hero's journey, there are 12 steps. This is my favorite infographic on the hero's journey. I lied, hold on. This one. You start your story. There's a call to adventure. And in the monomyth, you'll see that there is a refusal of the call. And that's the difference between having a monomyth and just having a regular hero's journey. If the hero's journey just goes, oh, it's time, like Luke Skywalker, oh, it's time for me to go save the galaxy. But if in a monomyth, there is a refusal to go. Luke did not refuse. Luke wanted to get out of there. All right, in a regular hero's journey, after the hero is chosen to go, she meets her mentor. And at that point, they cross the threshold from the normal world into the fantastical world, into the unknown world. There's also a threshold guardian. And I believe that if you go back to the monomyth, we're going this way, it goes left in the monomyth. He's calling it the supernatural aid, whoever made this infographic. And in this one, it's not quite spelled out so cleverly. This one's the same. It's just like, no, this one's not the same. Hold on. There's a bunch of different variations, and I'm not sure that Joseph Campbell would have agreed or disagreed with this. But as soon as the character goes into the fantastical world, they meet their threshold guardian. This one's called a helper, and this one's called a mentor. So, and remember, there's different tiny little interpretations there. All right. So in the hero's journey, then there's a temptation. There's an entering into the abyss. Moving quickly here, there's a transformation, and this transformation normally means that the character undergoes some sort of growth, that the character has a life or death experience, or that they learn something that they didn't learn before, and they undergo, so it says right there, growth and new skills. And then in this hero's journey, there's a revelation. There's a final challenge. So this final challenge here is the crisis. This is the final battle. And then there's an atonement, where the hero has figured out for herself what has just happened, and the reality sets in. And at this point, this one doesn't say it, but in some of these, this says gets gift, but it's also, this one has been interpreted as picking up the Holy Grail. So you find the Holy Grail. And when you think of the Holy Grail, all of a sudden, all your movies start flying at you like this. It's like the Dark Crystal, the hero, what is it about the Force, right? Luke has got to kill Darth Vader. All of a sudden, this interpretation of finding the Holy Grail, finding that one thing you were looking for, can give away to your audience that you're using the hero's journey as a template. And then there's a return to the normal world, which is ending. And in a monomyth, there's a refusal. There's a refusal to go back to the real world. They don't want to go back. So they like this idea of magic. And sometimes stories can end right here when they like, oh, I've got the Grail, and they go off and do something strange in the monomyth. So comparing the regular hero's journey with the monomyth is a really great way to study and analyze the arcs of feature films, literature, anything that you're being entertained by. And then both of them return to the ordinary world. And so this one here is just a really simple 12-step or 17-step for the monomyth. You're crossing into the belly of the whale, and then as soon as you see belly of the whale, you know you're talking monomyth. Road of trials, meeting of the goddess, woman is a temptress, atonement of the father, hypothesis, the ultimate boon. So this is reading monomyth. All of this can be, and often is, set up in Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3, just like I had said when we were talking about our story arc, where Act 1 is just the enlightenment, it's the introduction, it's the introspection, it's the learning who your characters are and why they have likes and dislikes, and what are their faults and failures and weaknesses and regrets. And that's all Act 1. And then all of a sudden, when you cross the threshold and you're rising action into the hero's journey for the fantastic world, you are in Act 2. Now, sometimes Act 2 can be divided up into 2 or 3 acts. Sometimes this whole arc here can be divided up into 4 complete stories. 5. Look at the Lord of the Rings. So, this is what, and then go back, and of all of you who are Game of Thrones fans, I never got to watch it, but there's probably something wrong right here. How many of you watched Game of Thrones? Nobody? Jesse? Nobody? So go,
I played Skyrim. Does that count?
I don't, yeah, it might be. I don't know it. But if there's something wrong with it, there's probably something right here, because everyone understands how to meet the villain and beat the villain and whatever. But then we talked about rising action and falling action, and then the return to the normal world is always really tricky. You see what I'm doing with my hand right here, Jessica? It's Jasmine, sorry. It's always really tricky because you don't want to be obvious. Oh, it's time to go home, everybody. It's more like, what the hell just happened? I don't want to go home.
Yeah, I seen the Game of Thrones.
So what was it about, there was something wrong right here probably, right?
Yeah. Do you mean like as the whole season, like all of it together as a big long storyline, or just season to season or episode to episode?
As I heard it, there was a final episode and everyone was like, what the hell with that?
Yeah, that pretty much happened.
And it permeated social media. It's like, hey, if you want to be disappointed, everybody go watch the Game of Thrones. I started watching it, and then my kids moved out of the house, and I don't think I got past the first season or something. To me, it was interesting. I think I saw one of the dragons die. That was like the last episode I saw. And where was that? One of the dragons dies.
It's probably getting closer, like maybe 2/3 of the way.
Oh, really? So maybe
or maybe a little bit further. Yeah.
I thought it was interesting. All right, so here's your hero's journey. So I'm going to put this away. There's your monomyth. I'm putting this away. There's your monomyth again, but just listed. And there's your monomyth again. Joseph Campbell is associated with the hero's journey and the monomyth. And then our silly little graphic right there. All right, so I wanted to do a couple of things. So this is part 2 of the lecture. Right? So now you just, on your notes, draw a line right across your page. Draw a line right across your page because I told you to. Jesse. Right? what I want you to do is I want you to spend some time just doing your own research, figuring out what parts of the hero's journey make sense to you, thinking about your favorite film and comparing it to this, this whole loop, whether you're looking at the simple chart or the monomyth, and to see if it makes sense. And then what I want you to do is look at other films for kids, and then the films and stories that you might have liked when you were adolescent or a teenager, and then films that you would have liked as you're a young adult and now you are an adult, and then pay attention to what like older people like. You know, not everyone liked those Alan Alda movies, you know, On Golden Pond, or movies where the target audience is like for grandma. You know, the story arc is there. There's growth. There's all kinds of fun things that happen, but it's not like you're entertaining your audience. So the next point here is audience. You as a storyboard artist and now an author coming up with your own story are basically becoming what is called an auteur. And the auteur is like this. Oops, I just had it. When I'm broadcasting this, you can see the word auteur, right? It's a French word, a filmmaker whose personal influence and artistic control over a movie are so profound that the filmmaker is regarded as the author of the movie. You are the auteur. So you can see this, right? Yes? Can you see the blue line here? Is there a blue line?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I wonder if I drew the blue line with my mouse in Zoom. I don't know how I drew that blue line. All right, so auteur, you're the auteur. Obviously look at Tim Burton. Obviously look at your great Spike Lee. Look at George Lucas. Look at Francis Ford Coppola. You have a very signature way of making films. And then go look at all their films. Are they using the same template? And what this is doing for you is broadening your scope of how to analyze a film. You are not allowed to go to a movie theater and just watch the film and go, oh my God, that was the best film I ever saw, oh my God. You know, you're thinking to yourself, I don't want to talk about this film right now. I want to think about it for a little while. When I was in college, I was an industrial design major, but all my friends were either photographers or cinematographers, and they taught me. They were in movie theaters with a notepad and in the dark writing notes while they were watching the film. Like, what are you people doing? Because they didn't want to miss anything.
I did that on my 4th rewatch of Frozen 2. It was so fun.
Okay, so you got the idea, right? So you're not allowed to enjoy a film anymore. I want you analyzing it. I want you breaking it apart and thinking about whether a character was doing something and whether that character acted in character or out of character. Did something that character do just like, did they do it just as a MacGuffin? And then you're like, wait, no, that character would never do that. They only did, oh man. You know, and that just ruins it. That ruins the story for you. And it's like, if you can then speak to that when you are critiquing a film with your colleagues or your other teachers or me, it makes a whole huge world of difference. It makes a huge difference. You come out of a movie theater with a general feeling. The Star Wars 1, 1977, is the hero's journey. When Luke is in his world and he's talking about evaporator generators, and you know, it is the perfect hero's journey. But in a storyboard class, we really should talk about the hero's journey, comma, and then forget about it, right? We should just like, okay, you can't do this in 3 minutes. But it's always good to know what an auteur is. It's always good to know what the hero's journey is and who Christopher Vogler is and all of that fun stuff. Got it? Especially if you are thinking to yourself that you would like to do something more with like the final story from the storyboard class right here. You know, I'm saying 3 minutes, but if you wanted to do like an excerpt or something from something of a bigger project, you're more than welcome. You know, you're just going to do the crisis, the fight, something of the story. All right, so having said that, there's a couple of things that I would like to say. And I invented this a couple of years ago. And what this is for me, and I called it my story motor. I called it a story motor. And what this is exactly what we talked about a couple of weeks ago when Brooke's team and Tabitha's team and Stanley's team all came up with stories for the film festival with an alien theme in it. What was all your story motor? This is the story motor. So I don't know what was happening in culture. I think you're all wanting to leave the world or something. But your story motor is driven by a couple of things. One, are you taking notes? Genre. What type of genre are you in? And what does genre mean? What does it mean? Somebody just say it. Andrew, say it.
So it would be like a category for storytelling, a category for, yeah.
Give us an example.
Like horror or action?
Yep, absolutely. Action,
Comedy, fantasy.
fantasy, Jasmine,
Romance,
romance, or
romantic comedy,
romantic comedy, or romantic horror. I just made that one up. Brooke?
Actually, I am trying to write a story of romantic horror.
Did we say fantasy yet?
Yes.
What else do we have? Contemporary.
That's a big category. Kids, babies, grandmas, right? Action adventure, science fiction, horror, summer movies.
Science.
Go ahead and say it again.
Science.
It's really soft. Say it one more time.
Science.
Oh, science fiction, documentary, music videos. I got a whole people who are not on my screen as their face, and you are not talking either. Nathana, Aaron, Marquise, Yalin, Timmy, Evelyn.
Did we get rom-coms yet?
No, say it louder.
Rom-coms?
I don't know what that is. What is that?
Romantic comedies.
Oh, romantic comedy. Yeah. Yeah, I think I said that.
Sad movies.
Sure, absolutely. All right, so you get the idea? That's the first part of your story motor, is you pick your genre. And then what do you pick after that? What's the next step in your story motor?
Setting.
Archetypes.
Okay. You kind of jumped the gun a little bit. There's something that you should think about first.
Character.
Just a little bit before that.
Setting. Like
Oh,
the
we already
setting
said-
of the event.
We already said that. Target audience. Who's your target audience? Is it just for 14-year-old boys? Is it just for 14-year-old girls? Go look at Finding Nemo. What was the target audience for Finding Nemo? Why was that film so widely successful?
Families.
Because it was family oriented. Its target audience was 12 to 14-year-old girls. They put some boy stuff in there too. They made sure it was family, or there was nothing offensive in it, and it hit the top of the bell curve. And everybody was happy. Everybody could get something out of that film. And then, oh my God, it broke box office records. Shrek did the exact same thing. It was a little more fun because they poked fun at Disney. And then all the parents are like, yeah, get those Disney people. And the Disney people were furious. And what did they do? They sued PDI because Shrek, the movie, and Jeffrey Katzenberg were making fun of Disney in terms of Little Bo Peep and Pinocchio and the three wolves. It's like, those are proprietary characters. Those are in the public domain. So when PDI and Jeffrey Katzenberg realized Disney was suing them, they went out and bought the best champagne they could find. Because they knew it was free advertising and it was a good movie to begin with. And then everyone was going to go to the theaters anyway to see what all the stuff was about. And then on top of that, it ended up being a great film. By the way, Cameron Diaz screamed and ran from the screening when she saw herself as a green gnome. She wasn't expecting that. As a green
That's
gnome,
funny.
a green ogre. All right, now, I already said this. The first step is genre, then your target audience, and then the third step is where it's going to go. What is the destination? Now, this can be anything. This can be comic books. This can be books. It can be fiction, literature, science fiction. It could be short films. It could be feature films. And once you put those three things together for your story motor, it kind of gets everything rolling. Then you start talking about setting. Are you in the past, the present, or the future? Are you, and if it's a Western in the future, so now all of a sudden, if you put those three things together and look at all the annals of films out there, you're like, oh yeah, I understand why they made that movie, right? So look at Spaceballs, look at anything, look at Airplane, look at comedies that just poke fun of all kinds of different things. In your destination, the next step for you is to make sure that what you're doing is different. You can't just repeat something. You can't just copy something unless you're spoofing The Simpsons or whatever. Good luck. But your next step then is to make sure that you know that what you're doing is cutting edge. What does that mean? What
Never
does
been done
cutting
before.
edge mean?
Never been done before.
Never been done before is a wonderful interpretation. Absolutely. But
Pushing boundaries.
pushing boundaries, excellent. Never been done before, pushing boundaries. But what does cutting edge actually mean? If your director comes to you, Brooke, and says, you know, this is pretty good, but make it more cutting edge. You're like, oh, okay, great. All of a sudden, you're going to call me on my cell phone and like, Billy, what does he want? What does my director want?
Push it farther, be more innovative.
Be more innovative. And those are
more
really
successful.
difficult things to kind of grapple with in terms of story and characters, right? Do you understand? Cutting edge actually means that the blade, the knife, the sword you are making is made of the composite type of metal that no one has before. And that you can kill a whole bunch of people with this sword and the sword stays sharp. It is cutting edge material. But when you apply it to art, it gets translated into what you had just said. No one's done it before. It's new. It's innovative. So that's what cutting edge means. All right. Then your director can also say, well, this is really great, Jesse, but it's not hot enough. It's the same thing. That means the same thing. It's not cutting edge enough. So when you are being critiqued like this and saying, make it hotter, go back and look at Over the Moon. And you tell me whether that dance sequence was in there just to make it hot. Whether that dance sequence right in the middle of the film is a MacGuffin all by itself. or if it's there just to sell merchandise. You can see that. The dance sequence is on YouTube as a teaser for the film. You know, they spent all their money on it. They didn't spend all their money on Tom Cruise this time. You know, Julia fucking Roberts does not speak in this film. They picked a whole bunch of people that are recognizable in China. And by the way, the ancillary characters in the film are brilliant. The uncles, the aunts. I love the whole family. You know, Fei-Fei is great. And mom and dad are, you know, they're okay. But the aunts and uncles, they're great. The the studio that did the animation for this, Pearl, also did a whole bunch of animation for the old PDI, the Shreks, the Madagascars, the Shrek 2, the Shrek 5. And there's one shot in there where Fei-Fei is driving her bike, and she rides her bike, and there's a whole bunch of people that are doing yoga or their contras or whatever. And you can tell that those animators worked on those PDI movies. There's a big contrast in the animation. All right, a couple of other notes, and then I'll let you take a break. One of the mechanisms that studios have been using in the last decade or so to make things more innovative or to more hot, make them more hot, is to add in characters that are
Diverse.
list of gay characters in animation. So, and you can just do all this yourself. And this is a wiki, so we don't know if it's absolutely 100% true. But we see that starting as early as 1997 in South Park, which is very cutting edge, very innovative. Family Guy, Hey Arnold, South Park again, The Simpsons, Futurama, all introducing either gay characters or alluding to them. I just watched Paranorman last night, and it was a big thing. Oh, it's the first openly gay character in a feature film. Like, yeah, no, it wasn't the first. But obviously when Mitch, the character, goes, oh yeah, my boyfriend loves chick flicks. And his sister goes, wait, what? That's a big moment in animation film for sure. It's a big moment for stop motion. It's a big moment for Leica. It's a big moment for Chris Butler and Sam Fell. And everyone's like, wait, that's why he wasn't into her. He's gay. So this is a very interesting thing here. A couple of the ones that I were highlighting for you were, so yeah, Paranorman, his name is Mitch. There was an allusion to the April and Miriam and Coraline, which was written by Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman had specifically wrote it to be kind of nebulous and let people think about it. And he was okay with the idea when Henry Selick was directing that they just pushed that card just a little bit, as much as they could. There's a gay character in Zootopia. On my notes then I have Onward, the Disney film. That was the first time Disney has used a gay or LGBTQT character, Officer Spectre, in Onward. Do you all see Onward?
That was the first time that Disney Pixar had
Right.
an openly
Right,
gay
right, right.
character.
All right, so there's a whole
Disney
bunch
has
of,
had like 5
yeah,
first openly gay characters now.
yeah, you're right. That was Disney Pixar. All right, so we're back to the monomyth. Okay, so take a break.
Hey,
Thanks,
thank you so
everybody.
much.
Everyone.
See you next
you.
week.
Night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye,
Okay,
guys.
ciao for now.
Go away.